All right. Welcome to Sideboard MTG. My name's Eric, and today we're going to be talking about the state of standard. It's Monday, so we're gonna talk about the meta a little bit. Now we've got a lot to talk about here. There was two events, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, both in Dallas. Now there was also some other team events, GP Indianapolis, but we're not going to talk about GP in Indianapolis as there was no real standard content there. Now in the team constructed event on Saturday in Dallas, we got a couple decks from there, but again that was team constructed, so we're not going to lean on those decks too much. However, Sunday was a standard event, and we're going to be looking at most of the top 16 of that event. Now, I am going to kind of point at a few of the other decks that were in the other tournament, but mainly we're going to be talking about that top 16. Also, just finished an awesome run with Naya Dinosaurs. You might want to check that out. I'll throw you a link up in the top right hand corner there, along with a link in the description box to Star City Games, where you can actually look at these lists yourself. So if you want to follow along while I kind of go through them, and we're just gonna kind of go through these lists and talk about what made each one of them different, or what makes them even relevant in the meta. Like why did this get there? And I think the first one's not going to really be much of a surprise to most of you guys. Now, the first deck we're going to be talking about here is just mono red aggro. Honestly, this came as a bit of a surprise to me, as I expected that the Boros deck would just truly take the place of mono red. Now, it looks like there's been a lot of people that just really didn't give up on the archetype and said, hey, cool, I've won a many a games where I just did not even pull Ramunap Ruins. I'm not even worried about it. And as far as the lands in this deck goes, there were, a couple Scavenger Grounds, couple Sun-Scorched Deserts. For the most part here, the deck is kind of exactly what we've grown used to out of a Ramunap red deck. However, there's just no Ramunap Ruins anymore. So now we're back on red deck wins. So we've got, main board Abrade, we've got Shock, Lightning Strikes, everything you would expect, and then 4 Invigorating Rampage. Now, one of the biggest things that Red was having a lot of problems with was Whirler Virtuoso, who's had its power cut down a lot. Now, even though that's had its power cut down a lot, it seems to me that there's being a lot of Pia Nalar being played. With Whirler just being an enter the battlefield trigger, you get the one-time use out of it in most of the Grixis decks. That really makes Pia a lot more powerful of a card, and is starting to get a little bit more play. You're just always guaranteed that Thopter. Good chump blocker, but Invigorating Rampage definitely giving red another way to get through there. So I really like this, especially giving 2 creatures trample here. Really good when you've got 1/1 chump blockers. Now, it is a Hazard deck, and you'll notice that it only ran 22 lands. Also, it has 2 Glory Bringers in the main deck. So, really cut down on the lands here in these decks, and I wasn't expecting that, as even when Ramunap Ruins, the deck had a lot of lands. It had 24, 25 lands in most of those versions, and maybe that's because it was expecting to be, chipping these lands, just throwing these lands away. So I can see that it doesn't need quite so many now. Now here in the sideboard, we've got a couple copies of Chandra's Defeat, Harsh Mentor, Abrade, Pia Nalar, which I spoke about earlier, Aether Sphere Harvester, and then a couple of Chandras and Advance's Blasting Cannons. Now, this is kind of, exactly what you would expect out of red deck. And again, the big surprise for me was that it just wasn't a Path to Metal deck. I kind of expected more of a Path to Metal deck, but that is not what happened. Guess what came in second place? Oh, look, another red deck. Now, yep, this one's kind of Boros. It does have the 4 Dragon Skull Summits, has 1 swamp in the deck, and as far as I can tell in the main board, it is simply to bring back the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Nothing else here in the main board. and the deck doesn't run the main board Glory Bringers. Nothing over here in the 5-mana slot. Only got the main board Chandra here. Now we are seeing the main board Pia Nalars. No Invigorating Rampage here. This deck is Scrap Heap Scrounger and main board Pia Nalar. There's not even On-Crop Crasher in this deck. Also, we've got some Inventor's Apprentice and Soulscar Mage, so we've got a couple more 1-drops. But this is another take on red. So, yeah, we definitely have the Earthshaker Kenra Hazard package, but as far as that goes, most of these creatures are just not what's normally seen in red, and I never really thought that Scrap Heap Scrounger and Earthshaker Kenra would work really well together, as there might be times where you get caught with only a Earthshaker Kenra to eat, and you might need that Scrap Heap Scrounger, so that just seems like bad times, but it may not be, and it did come in second place here. And then let's look at the sideboard. A couple more copies of Aethersphere Harvester than the other deck, but we do see some Direfleet Daredevils here. Now this is the not caster mage, if you will. It's or reverse caster mage, as some people call it. I've heard it called quite a few different things, but I really like this card. And against the Mirror in particular, where they have other burn spells, you can play this, grab a burn, get a little extra damage in, and it can actually help you really offset that combat math, or just how much is needed to finish the game. So this being a top deck against another red deck that has used a couple burn spells can be phenomenal and just really help you push over. The other card I want to mention here is Chandra's Pyro Helix. Now this gives you a little bit of split damage. It's kind of like, a forked bolt or dual shot, something like that. But you can aim this one at players, so it's really easy, to go to 1/1, and be done with a couple different creatures. Now I like this card, and I could also see dual shot being used, but you can just go 2 damage to a single creature here, so maybe there's a little more versatility. And then the Sentinel Totems, I can definitely see that getting some play. A couple more copies of Abrade, and then another copy of Chandra. Everything's pretty straightforward there. Now, that was the first 2 decks, okay? Now the third deck here, Jim Davis ran what I was hearing people say boggles, and this is not boggles. Alright, let's talk about it. Yeah, there's a ton of enchantments in this deck. We've got Cartouche of Solidarity. We've got the Curious Obsession, Cartouche of Knowledge. We've got Baffling Ian. Well, that's an enchantment. And then, we've even got Trial of Solidarity here. And then Saram, Senior Edificer. Now, it is a Saram deck, and it's really, really cool, and I like this deck. I really do like this deck. Even Legion's Landing, playing double duty here with Saram. Only making a 3 of, and there's only 20 lands in this deck, so this deck's kind of interesting. Couple copies of Sheltering Light here to, protect your creatures and stuff, but the Saram Senior Edificer, this card kind of gives you that modern feel, of you're playing your enchantments off on your boggles. However, you don't have any hexproof creatures. Now, that being said, you got a couple really cool creatures. You've got the Sacred Cat. You get a couple enchantments off on this. You gain a little bit of life. It can really help you out. Adorn Pouncer, same thing there. Wow, Magic with the red Adorn Pouncer. You know what? I like it. I like it. You go, Magic. All right. Adorn Pouncer, awesome card. Especially, when, you're doing 5/5 flying double strike because you put a Cartouche of Knowledge on your, eternalized 4/4 double strike, dude. That's pretty cool, okay? Not to mention, even if you could get something else down, if you can go wide, there's a lot of play here, and I can see why it came in third place. Really fun deck. The sideboard is so modern-esque that I just thought it was funny at how many 1-drops he was able to fit into this deck. It's clear that Jim was having a lot of fun when he was playing Magic, and if you've ever watched Jim Davis play, he has a lot of fun. And you can actually watch him on Twitch. Jim streams a lot. Like, I recommend it. I'll try to find a link and throw it in the description box. But anyway, Jim Davis, awesome. I would love to see his Bant approach list. I'm still looking for his Bant approach list that he played in the team list, and I just haven't been able to find it. 4 negates here. Squire's Devotion, the most expensive card in the sideboard here, one of 3 converted mana cost. If you will notice, that would make a total of 2 3-drops in the entire deck. Man, that's kind of cool. I like that. I wish that there was some like cool way we could trick this into like changing to like black or something else. But I'll take red. All right. Number four, we're going to start jumping around a little bit here because this deck is probably going to be one of the biggest ones to show up this weekend. Wow. All right, so in Team Constructed, it put up 3 copies in the top 16, 2 of which were in the top 8. And then on Sunday, it put up 4 copies in the top 16, 3 of which were in the top 8. This deck put up a 4th place, 6th place, and 8th place finish in the actual standard event, not Team Constructed. So definitely, guys, top 8 here, 3 copies in the top 8. Mardu vehicles. Pull the Abrades out, guys. Get the Abrades back out. Heart of Kirin is back. So definitely need to worry about the vehicles. Vehicles is back. If we kind of look at the vehicles list here, the thing that I really noticed about the vehicles listed, they all were very similar. And it seems like they mostly played with a one-of veteran motorist, moving it in and out of the deck. About 8 copies of removal, all of which played 4 copies of unlicensed disintegration. Now, the 2 lightning strikes, 2 shocks, you'll notice that those kind of swapped up a little bit from deck to deck. Now, some of the decks ran 4 lightning strikes, and he actually cut one of his PNLRs for a cut, so a cut to ribbons in there. And then if you look at the Mardu vehicles that came in 8th place, instead of the shocks, he ran a couple copies of Fatal Push, and then his PNLR was actually an Emmet Eternal, and then he cut a veteran motorist for a walking ballista here in as his last one. Now, this one was kind of interesting, and some of you may have already seen it. It's a little bit interesting. Now, if those were the only cuts he made, how did he get 4 spots for Inspiring Statuary? 4 Inspiring Statuary in this deck. When I first seen this, I was looking through, I was like, what? Where did he get the room for it? It's not running a 63 card deck. Bam, he cut the lands. Man, 19 lands come in top 8. Got in the top 8. Now, in the sideboard of his particular deck, he does have another land, so he can go up to 20 if he needs a little bit of graveyard hate. I don't know how often he sided this in. I don't know if he sided in for anything else. I would say every time he brought in any of this larger stuff, and when I say larger stuff, I mean Angrath, Fumigates, things of that nature. When he brought that in, I would say that he had to bring in the land. Also, he's got some settle the wreckage, cast out Chandra's, a chance to go big, but again, that would only take him to 20 land. However, this can really allow him to ramp into some things. PNLR, it really changes PNLR, allowing her to create, you a token that can tap for mana. That's a whole new aspect to Pia. So I really like that. Also, you know, the Chandra is giving you a little bit of ramp. I can see that if he can get to 3 or 4, that it might not be hard for him to go from there. However, getting to 3 mana looks like it might have been risky, and it looks like it paid off for him. So I definitely wanted to point this out of all of the Mardu vehicles. It's a strategy that you might want to take if you just want more things that you can play. However, I don't know if I would take it or not. Now, let's take a look at the 5th place deck from this list. Now, this is technically a Jund deck, but they're calling it green-red monsters. It does have some black in the mana base, and that's mainly, again, for Scrap Heap Scrounger. However, this is a Heart of Kiran deck at heart, with Merfolk Branchwalker, Jadelight Ranger, which only needs to tick once out of the 2 explorers to crew Heart of Kiran. Just a note there. Thrashing Brontodon, which crews Heart of Kiran quite easily, and then the Rekindling Phoenix. Now, I really liked seeing this list because the Rekindling Phoenix looked like it was going to be a ton of fun, and I expect to be playing this list at some point this week. I want to play with this card. This card looks really, really cool, and yeah, it's called a Rekindling Phoenix, but that artwork is 100% an owl. Like, look at its face. That's an owl. But either way, it comes back from the graveyard. I like it. I think that this is a pretty cool little deck. Now, that's not all that's in this deck. There's also 4 Glory Bringers and a Galta. Okay, Rekindling Phoenix is cool. That's turn 4, and in a perfect world, does this? Yeah, and yeah, that. It's just a really cool little deck, okay? You get to go wide, you get to put some big dudes down. You got a lot of really good value creatures here, and that's what I really like about it. Now, it does run the 4 copies of Jadelight Ranger, which has proven to be, you know, a really good card. You're going to see this this card in a lot of the other decks that I point out here tonight. All right, so that's kind of the main board of the deck. The only real kill spell in the main board is being Abrade, and then or Glorybringer also. We've got some Chandra's Defeat. Also here you're going to see a Dire Fleet Daredevil. Again, this card really, really good, and against certain matchups, just awesome card. Even could be good against the Grixis matchups where, you know, you might want to be able to, you know, pull a Fatal Push or something like that to get rid of one of their creatures or something. It really, really cool little card. Probably, you know, one of the better things that you might be able to do against a control deck with this would be like grab a Glimmer or something. But, you know, that's 6 mana and you're tapping out on your turn. But if this was your top deck, then that might not be a bad play. So I kind of like the Dire Fleet Daredevil, and you know, think people should definitely watch out for the card. A couple copies of Naturalize. No one's really a stranger to this. This is like the Green Negate. It's just been around forever. And when I say Green Negate, I mean just a staple printing. This card should probably just always be in Standard to just give you that perfect answer, and this is kind of the staple of how much this effect should cost. 2 mana, instant speed to be able to destroy target artifact or enchantment. That's kind of what you're looking for there. Another copy of Thrashing Brontodon. Now it's got the Naturalize effect on it, but you've got that 3/4 body, and remember that'll crew the Heart of Kiran here, which needs a crew of 3. Now, Deathgorge Scavenger also crews the Heart of Kiran, and then a couple copies of Sweltering Suns, a few struggles, you know, struggle to survive, killer card. I don't have the survive part of it here. I could probably pull that up, but I'm not going to waste the time here. Anyway, really, really cool deck. I'll probably be playing this at some point this week, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll definitely be playing that. Now, moving on into number 7 on the list here. Now, remember, Mardu vehicles came in 4, 6, and 8. So moving to number 7 on the list, we get a dinosaur deck. The only one of the tribes to really show up this weekend. And we get Temur dinosaurs. How about that? Temur dinosaurs. Reckless Rage making an appearance. One of the new cards from Rivals of Ixalan. 1 red mana, instant speed. Reckless Rage deals 4 damage to target creature you don't control, and 2 damage to target creature you control. Now, yes, this can be negated by killing their creature. You will remove one of the targets, therefore it will remove both of the targets, and you'll be able to fizzle this out. So this is a little bit of a reckless card. Ha ha ha. See what I did there? Anyway, this is a little bit of a reckless card, and you can get 2 for 1 with it. But when you're running cards like Ripjaw Raptor and you have the ability to get those down on turn 3, heaven forbid you play them on turn 4 with a Reckless Rage up, you can get in, get a little bit of extra damage, draw an extra card. This is instant speed. I can see this getting a lot of play, and especially when you have cards like Ripjaw Raptor that are a little bit hard to remove anyway. I actually really like cards like Reckless Rage. This is an interesting card. Now, you may say, why is this a Temur deck? Now, the main reason in the main board for this being a Temur deck is going to be this Nissa, Steward of Elements here. Now, the deck has some Rekindling Phoenix, which is, just part of the Temur good stuff at this point. Regisaur Alpha, Regisaur Alpha, Carnage Tyrant, 4 copies of Ghalta Primal Hunger. Apparently this is one of those things you just slam it, play another, slam it, play another. I think the deck is just really trying to get this on turn 4, turn 5. There are a couple plays where you can get this on turn 4. I think on turn 4, maybe it's turn 5. But the deck's pretty solid. I like the deck, and I think that there's a lot going on with this version of Temur. Now, Ghalta is definitely the top of the curve here, but in the sideboard, a couple more copies of that Thrashing Brontodon. We're seeing this guy like he's stomping around. We're definitely seeing Thrashing Brontodon. I mean, a 3/4 for 3. Terrific card. Couple copies of Abrades, Negate, and some Admiral's Orders. I don't really understand the Admiral's Orders. Maybe the raid trigger is good enough to make it have some play. I think that for this mana cost and most of the situation, you could just get away with a disallow. I don't know, but there was 2 copies of Admiral's Orders here, along with 2 copies of Deathgorge Scavenger. Now, also, you'll see some Silent Gravestone. I know a lot of the guys in chat and stuff, you guys were talking about Silent Gravestone, and I really like Silent Gravestone here, and it does kind of stop certain things without stopping other things, and I think it's one of about 4 good pieces of graveyard removal, and I kind of like that. It means that we have enough graveyard hate that you can find the piece of sideboard tech for your deck that's going to fit the best, and it looks like that the Silent Gravestone was the piece that he wanted here, and I can see that. So, all right, we're gonna move into 9th place here now. I like this one. This one I like. This is a Esper God-Pharaoh's Gift deck. And we get Minister of Inquiries, which means that you can turn 3 flip Search of Azcanta. A Minister of Inquiries, and I don't know if all of you know this or not, you play it on turn 1. Turn 2, you play Search for Azcanta, mill yourself with Minister of Inquiries, and then at the beginning of your upkeep with a Search for Azcanta trigger on the stack, you mill yourself again, and then dump whatever you see from the Search for Azcanta. You will then have 7 cards in the graveyard and can have 4 open mana on turn 3. So, Minister of Inquiries, if you're going to be running Search for Azcanta, absolutely, in my opinion, a must. A must. If you're going this graveyard strategy, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so we've got some chart, of course. We've got Kite Self Rebooter, Fatal Push. But now, most of you guys are probably used to, in Esper, this being one of those decks where you just go turn 4, bam, I've got, refurbish, here's my God-Pharaoh's gift. But not so in this deck. This deck uses Gate to the Afterlife, and it does still use the traditional Angel of Invention, but we've added Ravenous Chupacabra. Still got some hostage takers here. Now, because we're in black now, hostage taker is definitely a thing that we get to use, and the Scarab God. Only one main board copy of God-Pharaoh's gift. So, that is something to be aware of. If this deck becomes popular, once you pop the first one, if you're able to completely get rid of it, if you're able to exile it somehow, then you would perfectly have dealt with that card. However, if you're just throwing it in the graveyard, these Gate to the Afterlife, they can run, grab it out of the graveyard, no problem. And now, this deck's just full of tricks with, Walking Ballista giving you the ability to just kind of play that and, sack it so that you can just instantly get cards in the graveyard for triggers here. Just really, really cool interactions. I've seen some really interesting plays with Walking Ballista and Gate to the Afterlife here. So, anyway, we've got 4 copies of Duress. The rest of the Fatal Pushes to round out that play set. And, yeah, there we go. 4 copies of Negate, 4 Vraska's Contempt, another Ravenous Chupacabra, and a Cataclysmic Gearhulk. I love it. I love it. The Spice. 9th place, but awesome deck none the least. I would say that the deck definitely deserves a little bit of love here. Very interesting, but overall we've got a good Scarab God deck, and everyone knows that the Scarab God goes really well with Hostage Taker. Personally, I would love to see one of these 3 copies of Hostage Taker become a Gonti, but that's just me, and we're going to go ahead and look at the next deck here. I know a lot of you guys are going to be happy about this one. This is Blue-Red Winds. This is a favorable Winds deck, and it runs 4 copies of Warkite Marauder. Wow, I really like this dude. Whenever Warkite Marauder attacks, target creature defending player loses all ability. Target creature defending player controls loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 0-1 until end of turn. Now, granted, against something like Merfolk, they get some +1/+1 counters and stuff. They're not going to be losing those counters, but if they have any really cool abilities or anything like that, like Indestructible, or when they were put into the graveyard, return them at end of turn, some crazy god-like abilities, this can get rid of those. And if you can make, the Scarab God a 0-1 until end of turn, and then you can kill it, he's not getting it back, and there's not going to be a trigger because it will leave the battlefield as a 0-1 with 0 abilities. Now, Hope of Gearper, card that I haven't seen in a really long time, and I always liked it in some of my Thopters decks and my Artifact decks, and I always like playing around with this deck. And I know that you can get away with some really crazy plays with a Hope of Gearper, and I like seeing it as a 2/2 with the favorable winds. That's a thing. Siren Storm Tamer giving you that counter on a stick. And then a couple copies of Harvester, Whirler Virtuoso, so you can make some more Thopters. Personally, I would like to see Whirler Virtuoso in this deck just be Pia Nalar. I think that Pia Nalar would just be better. But, I guess if there's other ways to produce energy, it wouldn't be that bad. I just think that Pia Nalar is going to be more effective here, or you're just always going to be guaranteed your Thopter. So either way, Whirler Virtuoso definitely fits the bill here. Now, Maverick Thopters throwing out 2 of those flyers. Now, that's pretty good right here. And then, of course, Glorybringer. If you've got a 5/5 Glorybringer, wow, Wow, I thought Thundermaw Hellkite was good. Okay, it does have a little bit of lightning here, a little bit of reach in that. So the sideboard, couple extra copies of or a couple copies of land here. Now, if we look at the main board, there's 24 lands. So if you bring these in, you're looking at 26 land. I don't know if he was always doing that or not. But the deck's pretty low to the ground for the most part. It does get up there with the Glory Bringers, but I wouldn't call Maverick Thopterist. I wouldn't say that that is getting played for 5 mana quite often, so I don't know if it needed to go to 26 land at any point, so I don't really know what's going on there. Maybe, certain lands came out, certain lands went in, Ipni Rivulets or something, I don't know. Anyway, couple copies of Shock, 4 copies of Abrade, 4 negates, not playing around, just straight up for the whole play set, done and done. All right, moving on, what do we got for the rest of the sideboard? A Nimble Obstructionist, I kind of like this card. This card's pretty cool. And then, of course, here, a couple copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance to just kind of round everything out. I like Chandra. Chandra is just one of those great cards, and if you have copies of it, you pretty much just have to play it, right? I mean, it's Chandra. Alright, so that was the 10th place deck. Now, 11th place and a couple of the other, places here. We're not gonna continue to go down the list because most of them are repeats. So I am gonna skip around a little bit. We did get a green-black constrictor list here. The green-black constrictor list, pretty cool, and if you watched MTGO Traders, it's a lot like his list. It ran 4 Jadelight Rangers, Rishkar, 3 of in the deck again, something I haven't seen in quite some time. Rishkar was normally being run as a 2 of, but hey, that's pretty cool. Bristling Hydra, Verdurous Gearhulk, just the whole gangs here. Walking Ballista, Vraska's Contempt, Kitesail Freebooter, Essence Extraction, and Scrap Heap Scrounger. Now that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit on the creature side. There's 27 creatures in this deck, and then here we've got Enter the Unknown. Target creature you control explores. You may play an additional land this turn. From what I've heard, this card's actually ridiculously bonkers and was probably needed to be moved up to a 4 of. I heard that this was just a really, really good card, and that there were quite a few turn 3 plays where they untapped with, like, they played a couple copies of this and just drew the lands needed to just play multiple copies of this in one turn, and that's kind of cool. And I don't know if that's going to become broken or not. Luckily, you can't really do this on turn 1 because you need a creature. It has to be able to explore. But I've heard of some really crazy turn 3 plays, or untapping into Verdurous Gearhulks on turn 4, or some crazy plays off of Rishkar with this. So either way, really, really interesting, and I would like to see a lot more out of Enter the Unknown. Matter of fact, let me know in the comments if you've played Enter the Unknown and Rishkar, which apparently is a turn 3 bomb. If you've played this, let me know. I'm really, really interested in how this works and just how well this works in the meta. Clearly it works pretty well because he topped 16 with this deck list, but apparently there's some really cool turn 3 interaction there, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Now, moving on down the list here, we've got this Jund list. Now, green red monsters again, a lot like the list we looked at before. Magma Sprays, Abrade, Merfolk Branchwalker, Heart of Kirin, Scrap Heap Scrounger, just all of the expected things. Jadelight Ranger again making a 4 of in the list. Rekindling Phoenix, Ronus the Indomitable, 3 copies of Pianalar, a Geshath 4 Glory Bringers, and then here's where this one's a little bit special, so I thought you guys might want to look at this one. It's got some Atalis in it, the Primal Storm. Now, Atali doesn't have haste, but Atali's pretty cool anyway. I like Atali, and anytime that I get some free cards, remember, we're going to exile the top card of each player's library, so, you know, who knows, we might even flip up this big bad Galta and play it for free, even though if we had Atali on the battlefield, I mean, it costed just a few. Anyway, the green-red monsters list, pretty cool list. I think that eventually this list is going to end up splashing blue to have a little bit more stable of a sideboard. It pretty much all the things you would expect here. Went real simple on the sideboard here. You know, 2 of Lifecrafter's Bestiary, 2 of Naturalized, 2 of Chandra's Defeat, then 3 of Chandra herself, 3 of Sweltering Suns for some board wipe, and then 3 of Deathgorge Scavenger. Now, overall, this is kind of a little, you know, dinosaurs deck. You could say that it's a dinosaurs deck. Honestly, I would have expected to see a couple Ripjaw Raptors in here, but I can see where the Jadelight Ranger can, you know, make sure that you at least get a card or so off of it. Either way, pretty cool deck. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's kind of a Jun deck. I know you guys like Jun, and we're going to talk about the 16th place deck. Now, we've heard Esper tokens, we've heard Abzan tokens, but it's been quite some time since we've seen an all-out black-white tokens list. That's right, look at that land base, guys. No green, no blue splash, treasure map, hidden stockpile, anointer priest, Legion's Landing, fatal push, just, you know, all the things you would expect. Wait a minute, that's a Regal Caracal in the same deck with Fumigate. Main board, wow, okay. So we've got main board Regal Caracals with Anointed Procession and main board Sunscourge Champion. So we've got this minor theme of Eternalized double tokens. We've got, you know, some control elements here with Settle the Wreckage, Fumigate, Cast Outs, start to finish. Really cool little deck. I like it. I like where the deck's going. I like that it's got the Eternalize. But one of the things that stuck out for me was a sideboard option that I am dying to play with. This card looks so good, and that's Profane Possession. Profane Procession. Awesome card. Allows you to just get in some really good removal. Exile target creature. Now, granted, you can only exile 3 creatures, but if you are exiling, like, say, you know, Scarab God tokens or something like that, then you can continue to do this because it does need to have 3 cards truly exiled. And remember, tokens go away once they entered exile. So, either way, that's pretty cool, and giving a little extra removal there on, you know, just a little permanent. You can throw that down, then go on with the rest of your game. I think if you guys get a chance to, you know, watch Star City games, check out what Patrick Sullivan said about this deck, or sorry, this card. Awesome, you know, piece of intel there. You know, listen to, like, Patrick Sullivan really broke this card down. I really like what he said about it, and he pretty much said that it allowed you to take extra turns. You know, allowed you to just do things without actually having to invest into the game more, and so you get to sit back on your cards and then just make all of these decisions at the end of their turn. Really powerful card, and will demand some answers. So all those, you know, naturalize and things you see, this might be why. You got to be able to hold cards like this back. Also got a little extra card draw here and some Argyle's Bloodfast. A little bit more control, Forsake the Worldlies to deal with other people's profane possessions and stuff, processions. Some Lost Legacy, a card that I'm not 100% fan of. I don't 100% like Lost Legacy, but I understand that it is one of those necessary evils that we have to run, and I do run it in my decks. We also have the the final copy of Regal Caracol here in the sideboard. And other than that, that is your tokens deck. Now, let's talk about some of those decks that showed up over in the Team Constructed a little bit. Now, one of the first ones to talk about would be, I guess, would be the Mardu Vehicles deck that looks almost exactly like the Mardu Vehicles decks that we've seen in the other list, which took first place. But the deck I really wanted to talk about was the green-black snake deck that showed up over there. It had 3 copies of Ravenous Chupacabra in it, and I thought that was pretty cool, but it also had the Jadelight Ranger. So Jadelight, definitely something that's happening here. Rishkar Pima Renegade, now it did not have the 1 mana Explorer, then play an extra card. It did not have that, but it did run the Blossoming Defense, and I thought that was really nice that, you know, we got to see this archetype that's been around and been in the meta for quite some time. The deck has not changed a whole lot. It has went back to running the Verdurous Gearhulks, but for the most part, the deck's, you know, still getting in there with some of the new creatures. But again, for the most part, we've got Glint Sleeve Siphoner and Winding Constrictor, which is kind of what everyone's really grown used to. No Long Tusk Cub or anything like that. I think that Merfolk Branchwalker has kind of really taken the spot of Long Tusk Cub, which is kind of sad to see it go. But I can understand it without all of the extra energy production. Long Tusk Cub can't really get out of hand. So you just kind of take what you get with the Merfolk Branchwalker and such. Now, in the sideboard of this deck, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, which just a card that really just keeps showing up. A couple copies of Vraska. Vraska herself, just absolutely terrific card. Another Vraska's Contempt. Golden Demise, one of those new cards with a sin. And all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, but if you have the City's Blessing, your creatures don't. This deck doesn't really care about that, as most of the time you got enough +1/+1 counters, or you can buff your creatures enough that your creatures are kind of going to get over that -2/-2, and you know, really not going to suffer from it near as bad. Now remember, those are not counters, so you're not going to get -3/-3 or something like that because you have a snake down. Now, 4 copies of Duress, because there's no blue in the deck. You got to mean it in this. No Lost Legacy, though. And then also no Deathgorge Scavenger. Instead, for the graveyard hate, we got some Deadeye Tracker. And I'm starting to hear more and more people swear by this card, to say that this card is just starting to feel like a main boardable card. I don't know if I would say that, but I definitely, in playing, I have also started to have some success with the card. Even if this pulls a removal spell, it's normally pulling a spell that would be meant for something else, and that might help you get along. And if they are a graveyard strategy, it pretty much demands an answer. I kind of like it, and if you've got a Winding Constrictor, it can grow out of hand pretty quick. So that is the green-black snake that come in second place. Now, there was another green-red monsters list over there, 4 Abrades, 4 Merfolk Branchwalkers, you know, all of the things that you would expect. Deathgorge Scavenger, Jadelight Ranger, Thrashing Brontodon, you know, the Phoenix, everything. Galta, Glorybringer, it was clearly run as a team. But Grixis Control was the deck that I was happy to see. Now, we've seen, you know, red-blue control in the past. We've seen blue-black control. Matter of fact, you know, Tomiko, I think, is it Oliver Tomiko? Our national champion won with blue-black control. So it's just really cool to see this version. Here, we've got Magma Sprays, Fatal Push, Sensor, Essence Scatter, Search for Iskanta, a Parade, Harness Lightning, Sweltering Suns, Disallow, Supreme Will. Just, I mean, a huge list of different toolbox spells. Just exactly what I would expect out of a good Grixis list. Vraska's Contempt, Hieroglyphic Illumination, and Glimmer of Genius. Okay, so originally I would say, hey, normally, if you don't have a lot of uses for the energy, I don't know if I would run the Glimmer of Genius. However, one of the main kill spells here is Harness Lightning, so I can see the Glimmer of Genius. And when we get into the sideboard, I'll talk a little bit more about why Glimmer of Genius is a little bit better than Hieroglyphic Illumination in this deck. Now, again, if we talk about some of those blue-black control decks, there are many of them that want to flip search for Azcanta a little bit quicker, and they like having the Hieroglyphic Illumination because they can cycle it and then flip. So I can see where, coming from with the Hieroglyphic Illumination and being able to just Torrential Gearhulk back into it later. However, in this deck where you can actually get a little bit of use out of that energy, I can definitely see the Glimmer of Genius. Now, let's look at the high-end cards here. 2 copies of the Scarab God, 3 Torrential Gearhulk, pretty much standard for those control decks we've been seeing lately, and then a singleton copy of Hour of Devastation. Let's take a look at the sideboard because there's another Hour of Devastation over there. Nothing here behind the preview, just the Hour of Devastation. Now, the cards that I really want to talk about here is it does have a Gonti as one of the only other creatures in the deck. So not a lot of creature action here. Kefnet the Mindful. Against the control matchups, you can easily just get this down on a turn 3. You get to play your Search for Azcanta on 2. Then you get to pass back to them. They tap. You play your Kefnet, and then from that point you draw, swing, draw, swing, draw. Like it gets really, really good. Anyway, Kefnet's a really, really good card. It doesn't play so well on the mulligan. Like if you're mulligan, I don't know how much I like Kefnet, and I just think it's cool that you're starting to see some more people get some play with Kefnet. I've played with it a little bit in the past, and on those draws where you get to just sit back on this control element where you're countering things and you're just chilling, man, Kefnet is right where you want to be. So in the sideboard where you can bring him in or hurry in against those certain decks, I can see it. Couple copies of Lost Legacy, again, that Necessary Evil, 4 negates, 2 abrade, 3 duress. I mean, just when you mean it, right? Alright, the next deck here is going to be blue-black control. It came in 8th place. The Grixis control came in 7th in the team constructed. Now, in this deck, you'll notice it's a lot more like Oliver Tomacara. It's a lot like the U.S. Nationals for Ixalan, or for 2017. A little update here. Moment of Craving showing up in the deck. Search for Azcanta, pretty much always been there. Consign, a card that, kind of new to the deck, but we have seen some Consign to Oblivions in the past. The Oblivion part of that making them discard 2 cards. I think that's 4 mana. 4 copies of Disallow. This might be a little bit more than most decks have played in quite some time. And again, here you'll see the Hieroglyphic Illuminations as he's taken for the route that allows for a quicker flip of Search for Azcanta. And a couple more creatures in the main board that than we're used to seeing. Ravenous Chupacabra. Really cool, really cool addition here. I like it. The rest of the creature package, exactly what we would expect. 2 the Scarab Gods and 3 Torrential Gearhulks. But wow, these Ravenous Chupacabras, just giving them that, terminate on a stick, especially when you have the Scarab God there, not bad. Now, taking a look at the sideboard, we did get a glance at it earlier. There's a Tetzamach here, a Vizier of Many Faces, Bantu's Last Reckoning. Now, one of the reasons I actually expected this deck would have had Glimmer, but it did not, is there are some sideboard Glint Sleeve Siphoners, and the rounded out play set of Moment of Craving here. So, also 3 negates, 3 duress, a singleton Argyle's Bloodfast for a little bit of card draw. this deck's really got it. I really like this deck, and I think the deck's really, really cool. Now, third place in this tournament was taken down by Sultai here. Danny Jessup doing it again. Now, last time SCG was in Dallas for Ixalan, Andrew Jessup and Danny Jessup brought us Sultai, the Sultai deck that ended up winning the Pro Tour. Now, here we are about 3 months later. Here Danny Jessup is playing Sultai one more time, and he's got some new cards here. Now, this time we've got a little bit of ramp. Servant of the Conduit, also Glintsleeve Siphoner, Merfolk Branchwalker, all the 2-drops that we've kind of grown used to. Now the new 3-drop that everyone's getting used to here, Jadelight Ranger, double green, kind of need that double green to be able to play this. Aether Sphere Harvester in the 3-drop slot, 3 copies of Bristling Hydra, 3 copies of Vraska's Contempt, 2 Ravenous Chupacabras, another black deck. You can cast it. Why not cast it? People are throwing this in their deck. This card is here to stay. At this point, I'm going to say it's just instantly a standard staple. Now, what made this deck interesting to me? Danny Jessup, he did not play around. Even though he's running some main board Nissa Steward of Elements here, 4 main board copies of the Scarab God. Oh my, the Scarab God. 4 main board copies. Holy cow. Wow. When you mean it, you mean it. So basically it's like, hey, you're going to Vraska's Contempted, so I'm going to play another one. I'm just going to keep playing these until you can do something about it. But I like it. It gives you this nice liberal, just a nice liberal application of the Scarab God. Just a nice liberal application. Needs more of the Scarab God. Anyway, we've got Vraska herself, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, another card that it just keeps showing up in these decks, guys. Lifecrafters, great card. Everyone knows it. Deathgorge Scavenger, Eating at the Graveyard, 3 negates, 3 duress, seems to be a blue-black staple here in the sideboard. I don't expect that to go anywhere. Essence Scatter, floating in and out of main decks. Everything you would expect, in a good Sultai deck. Now, that is the last of our decks there. I wanted to talk about that third place deck here with the 4 copies of the Scarab God. But where does that leave us in Standard right now? Well, it looks like a lot of the same. A couple of these cards are going to require a little bit new interaction. We're going to see some of these cards on a newer curve. There's going to be certain interactions that are going to allow these cards that we're all used to be played on earlier turns, like Thunder Herd Migration is going to allow Ripjaw Raptor on 3 more consistently. We're going to see Regisaur Alphas more. I think Dinosaurs definitely got the help that it needed. One of the things that I want to point out, and one of the things I have to talk about, is Jadelight Ranger. Jadelight Ranger has shown up in so many of these decks alongside Merfolk Branchwalker. These are definitely standard staples. Ravenous Chupacabra, anywhere these cards can be played, they seem to be getting play. Glintsleeve Siphoner definitely getting a lot of love here lately. Glintsleeve Siphoner, you'll also notice if you look at the pricing, Glintsleeve's going up a lot. So, I hope that you got a chance to get your play set of those beforehand. If not, and you play online, there's a link in the description box below where you can sign up to rent cards from Manatraders. And if you sign up from the link, it helps the channel. Also, if you were interested in helping out the channel, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can post your decks on our subreddit, you can even support the channel on Patreon. There's a lot of things over there on the Patreon to give you something back for your buck. I know you worked hard for it, so I'm going to make sure that you get something back if you give me one of your hard-earned dollars. So, that's all I've got for tonight. Man, I had a lot of fun looking at these decks, reviewing everything. I hope you did too. And I'll see you next time here on Sideboard MTG.